Michael Orsi. I'm your host for Action for Life Television, that good news program which brings you the big G for the gospel of Jesus Christ and little g, all the good things that people do to put that gospel of life into action. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I have many issues that I bring to your attention on a weekly basis. One of the issues that I've been thinking about lately and trying to find solutions to is the problem with what's going on with marriage. Okay, first of all, I am told now that a lot of people are not getting married. As a matter of fact, the number of marriages are at an all-time low since 1868, when they first started to keep records of marriage. Secondly, a lot of marriages are falling apart. Thirdly, and I think this is so serious that it requires a good deal of thought and discussion, maybe some extra programs on this topic, what is happening to the family? Because a lot of children now, I am told that 1 in 3 children are now being raised by a single parent, usually a mother. So, as I do all the time, because you only deserve the best, you're my friends, you're my audience, I have brought in a couple of experts to tell us what we can do to help promote sound, solid, holy marriages. And we have with us today John Van Epp, and we also have J.P. Gance. And they wrote a book called Endgame. It talks about faith, talks about family. I read the book. Now, why did I read the book? Because as a pastor, I am gravely concerned about keeping people married and encouraging other people, if they're right for each other, to get married and not just live in a cohabitation situation, which, of course, those situations are very fragile, very fluid, and really do not help people to make good, solid choices for themselves and for their children. So, John and JD, you wrote a book called Endgame. And tell us about the book. Briefly tell us about the book, and then we're going to talk about what you propose to do to help people get married and stay married and raise healthy children.
Ultimately, the book is in 3 parts. As you know, Father, the thrust of it is to demonstrate to pastors and to church leaders that the threat to the future of faith and Christianity is entirely wrapped up in the health and vitality of our marriages and families, right? And we go through a sociological, psychological, and biblical argument there. And then we unpack what can be done about it, right? What does a great relationship look like? John does a phenomenal job unpacking that. And then we go into what is the solution then at the individual church level, individual parish. What can the parish do to not just encourage great marriages, but actually increase the number of marriages that are going to happen in the community? So that kind of gives you a quick sense of what we try to do in the book. John, if you want to add anything.
John, I want to ask you, what has led to this lack of marriage and also the deterioration of marriage?
That's a great question, and it's about the first third of the book. We talk about what we call the decoupling effect. So the decoupling effect is a term that I coined a while ago to talk about how marriage has become decoupled from sex, from partnership, meaning life partnership, and marriage has also become decoupled ultimately from parenting. And those 3, key areas that have historically always been a package deal with marriage, as they slowly became decoupled and thought of as some kind of an activity, an arrangement that can be done outside of the marriage seal of commitment, the covenant of marriage. Outside of that, it can be done independent. As that happened, we saw the fragility of relationships increase astronomically. I'll give you a quick example. One of the studies that we covered was a very fascinating kind of landmark study done over almost 10 years, just shy of 10 years. by Columbia University and Princeton University. Basically, they looked at couples both that were married and had their first child, and then couples that were unmarried and had their first child, and they compared these two groups. So I'm going to focus in on the unmarried. So about 40% of all couples in America, let me back that up. About 40% of all women in America are unmarried when they have their first child. If we talk about generations, that would be about, for the millennial generation, 50 to 55%. So over half of all babies born in America in the last 15, 20 years are to an unmarried mother. So they met with them at the birth of their child. This is the unmarried group. They asked the women first, do you plan on marrying the father? Well, about 70% of the women said, yes, I plan on marrying the father of my child. When they asked the fathers alone, do you plan on marrying the mothers? Father Orsi, what do you think what percentage of fathers said, yes, I'm going to marry the mother?
I don't know. Probably half.
Well, it was actually a higher percentage than the moms. So 82% of the fathers said, I'm planning on marrying this mom. Here's the key. 5 years later, they came back and they did, again, an assessment of these couples. Now the child is, 4 to 5 years old. They sit down with them. Only 16% are married. And over 70% of the moms have moved on to a new partnership. And so, although a lot of times you hear kind of just people half-heartedly say, marriage is just a piece of paper. All of the data that we have, all of the evidence that we have is that marriage actually seals the relationship. If I jump back in that study to the married couples that were married first and then had their first child together as a married couple, at the 5-year mark, 5 times more of them were married than those, or still together, I should say, than those that were maybe cohabiting or living in different arrangements, but unmarried. Because marriage does have this just a phenomenal way of sealing. It's not, a magic pill that solves all the problems, but it is God's design for truly securing two people in not only their relationship, but in the formation of family.
Hey, that's fantastic what you just said. I mean, the decoupling of sexuality from marriage, the whole idea of cohabitation not being the same as marriage, how fragile those relationships are, what happens to the children in those relationships. They end up with a single mother, usually, perhaps a serial number of men moving in and out of their lives. But you said something else, and I think it's very important. God's design, God's plan, and somehow that idea of God having a plan for the human race, how the human race is to reproduce and how the human race is to nurture its young, has been lost. It's almost gone. So could anybody talk about that?
The children raised who live in a home with a man who's not their father is the most likely to suffer abuse, either sexual or physical. Okay, there's great victims in deviating from this plan, right? That actually oftentimes we think and we present God's teachings. And sometimes we've got a great asset in the social sciences. We want to make pastors and your viewers who might have a grandchild or a child who's decided to live with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And it's important for them to know that a woman who lives with her boyfriend is the most likely to suffer from domestic violence. A child conceived in these homes, over 70% of them are fatherless, certainly by age 12. So there's a lot of victims here, and I think we need to connect our theology. We need to connect that with the latest social sciences, because it just turns out that the social sciences are proving God's plan works.
And now the million dollar question I want to ask you is, how did this breakdown begin? Who's responsible?
You know, I'm gonna answer that question in a different way, kind of a little. What is ultimately the role of the church and the breakdown of the family? How do these two areas? So JP kind of introduced it by saying the premise of the book is that we have two major declining statistics in sociology, in religion, in the meta view of America. Two major declining areas. One is the decline of family stability and family health, but the other decline, Father, is really the decline of religiosity and church attendance, and ultimately some kind of house of worship that people belong to. We know Gallup just this last year came out with under 50%, a historic low of anyone ascribing to some house of worship, 47% of Americans. And so we have these kind of parallel declines that JP and I in the book say are not unrelated.
So as goes religion, so goes marriage and the family.
And now this is really important for all of us, and it's a major premise of the book. As goes marriage and the family, so goes religion. So we propose that if the church does not come together to speak into this need of family fragility, of ultimately helping two people form a marital covenant that is secure and becomes a great, framework for the raising of the children. If the church does not aggressively get into that space, there is no other institution that can save marriage and family in America. And as the family breaks down, this is why, as the family breaks down, as marriages break down, the transmission belt of faith is breaking down. That is a major incubator for as children grow up, they learn two things. They not only learn the love of Jesus through the love of their family, they learn the message of Jesus through the words of their family and through their family faith practices, but they also learn a template of God the Father. And JP can speak to this, but atheism grows out of family breakdown and the loss of fatherhood, which happens across the board when you have single parent families. There is a tremendous, unfortunately, even though fathers want to be involved a lot of times, logistics interrupt that, and there's just a tremendous loss of presence of fathers in many single parent homes. And as a result, there is a loss of understanding the love of a heavenly Father.
As you can imagine, producing this wonderful program, Action for Life, it costs a great deal of money. We're going to need your help. So if you would like to donate to keep this good news program on the air, please go to your computer, your cell phone, actionforlife.net. Thought for the day. I hope that all of you belong to a Christian community. Going to church is extremely important. Why? Because we need the support of other people in order for us to live a good Christian life. Christianity is a community religion. Please worship in your church this weekend. Wow, that's powerful, folks. You hear that? Family and religion go together, and I guess you really can't have one without the other. So you can see how important it is for families to go to church, for families to pray together, to read the scriptures together, and it frames a whole mindset that helps young people for the rest of their lives so that they can form good families too. And you hear how important it is for fathers to be involved with the family. And oftentimes, if the parents are divorced, you know how difficult it is to set up quality time with the children, especially if the father is not the one who is awarded the care of the children. Okay, these gentlemen are talking about the importance of religion and the job of the church. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the church has fallen down on its obligation in proclaiming God's teaching on marriage. Where we went wrong, I don't know. I'm going to ask these gentlemen, what have we done? Have we not preached enough?
Yeah, well,
have we not
Father-
been firm enough as to what is expected? What about sin? When you break God's laws, when you defile a marriage, when you take your marriage vows lightly, when you divorce easily. Let's talk about that and what the church is supposed to do. Help me, because I'm a pastor and I want to help my people. That's why I read your book. It's a great book. Endgame, folks, you got to get it. It's very, very good. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Father. Well, first and foremost, we have to recognize that most of what the church does right now on marriage, at least at the individual parish level, hasn't changed over the last 60 years, right? So we did a survey with the Barna Group. I cite it in the book. 82% of Catholic parishes report spending 0% of their annual budget on marriage and relationship ministry. Now we know.
Hey, JP, that's worth repeating because that's a phenomenal statistic. What you just said.
Yeah, that means 4 out of 5 Catholic parishes don't actually do any marriage and relationship ministry. I was talking to a director of family life for a diocese who said to me, almost dismissively, our priests already get this. Marriage and the family is the most important thing. To which I said, well, then how does the actions of your priests based on the individual parish level, how are we allocating capital, allocating staff time, allocating father's time to proclaiming and advancing a ministry that encourages marriage and strengthens marriage? That's number one. Obviously, you said, what started the decline? The sexual revolution. Most sociologists agree, beginning in 1960, with the advent of artificial contraception created a cascade of actions, right? The church hasn't adjusted in a practical pastoral way to supporting singles so that they can form healthy relationships. Okay, that's a huge thing, Father. As you noted, there are 31% fewer people getting married every year today than in the year 2000, 61% fewer than in 1970. And the sacramental marriages in your average Catholic parish have nearly vanished, right?
Oh yeah, we have more funerals than we have weddings. I was at a parish a number of years ago in New Jersey, and I had 76 weddings in 1 year. I talked to the present pastor. We're down to 25.
Right. Yeah.
And that's probably a lot compared to most places.
That's a lot. That's actually more than double the average for the average Catholic parish today. And you have to go all the way back to 1970 before you had marriages and funerals had a similar number in the Catholic Church. Today, you've got somewhere around 380,000 funerals for somewhere around 140,000 weddings. So this is, there's an old saying that a trend that can't go on forever won't. And so at some point, those numbers will have to come back into union. And we would rather to see the parishes be really proactive in relationship ministry. And so John has some amazing pastoral resources that a pastor can take and use, bring to the full parish community, including single people. Communio, my organization, helps the individual parish go beyond the same daily communicants who might come to every parish program. How do we go out and live Matthew 28, reach out, go out to the community, bring new people in to experience effective and good relationship ministry. We have to, I was talking to a pastor, and I'll suggest as Catholics, we're really great missionaries in Africa. The fastest growing religion in Africa over the last 100 years has been Catholicism. Okay. And one of the ways that when we have missionaries in Africa, we find needs. You dig a well, you find needs for food. Okay. And then when people experience our love, they want to know why, and they'll hear the gospel. Well, in the United States, we don't have the radical poverty of Africa, but there's a great poverty, as we all know, in loneliness and broken relationships and broken marriages. And that's the well of the first world. That's what each parish can become the hub.
Okay, let's talk about, how are we going to do this? You said that there's not much money, resources put into marriage programs or marriage prep programs for young people who are contemplating marriage, or even some older people who, maybe they failed in their first marriage and are coming back to try to establish a second marriage. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know where it comes down to? I'll tell you right now, it comes down to money. All right, you put your money where your mouth is. If you think that marriage and family is important, then the parish, the church, has to put money into a program to help people to establish healthy marriages, because it's for the health of society, building block of society, marriage, new family, and for the church. Okay, so let's talk now about, give me an idea about a budget. When I make up my budget, how much should I put in for preparation of couples for marriage and pre-marriage? How do you meet a nice guy, a nice girl, and then, establish a healthy relationship?
I'll get started, because you talk the organizational side of it. So I'm going to kind of go to what exactly is the money being used for, and then JP can talk about how to make these structural changes. Because I think I'll just say this, JP, you have a one-of-a-kind, and I truly mean this, a one-of-a-kind organization in the United States to really help paradigm shifts of the priorities of churches to see relationship health as a primary responsibility and opportunity of the church that is not being actualized. And I don't know any other organization that's doing this. So Communio is the organization to help churches to actually operationalize and actualize relationship health as a priority. I've worked over 25 years with helping not only churches, but the military, nonprofits, community-based organizations across the country and internationally to actually have programs to speak into relationships, and particularly starting way upstream, pre-relationship. So, Father, we can't just talk premarital anymore. We got to talk about pre-relational. Before people get into relationships, they have a template, and we have to help them to reshape the template of what a healthy relationship is, as well as how to go about choosing a partner. And
they don't even know, a lot of them, what a healthy relationship is, because they come out of, a lot of times, dysfunctional backgrounds.
That's right. And so we have to help them reshape that template so that they don't live out.
Do you guys talk about a marriage minister? Like, we have youth ministers in the parishes.
Yeah,
Relationship minister. How do we do this?
Yeah, I want to tell you, Father, if the Catholic Church was, if you were to think of it as a company that was running a business model, and you keep producing parts that were breaking down, the shareholders would say, what are we doing here? We got to alter things, right? I come to this as, a faithful Catholic. My brother is a Catholic pastor in Vero Beach. And so I jokingly say I'm as much a member as the Hair Club president here, but the reality is over 90% of Catholic parishes allocate money to youth ministry. It doesn't produce the leverage. We need to begin reallocating capital. I would encourage a parish to do zero cost budgeting. Look at what's working, what's not working. I think having a director of marriage and family life at your parish is a really good place to begin. Organizations like mine do full service consulting to help a parish build it and design a multi-year strategy around every stage of relationship life. From
I'm
single
encouraging.
life
I'm
to
encouraging pastors, priests, and ministers and rabbis. Look into the book Endgame and find out how you get in touch with these folks to help establish in your parish a marriage minister, relationship minister, and to build it right into your program. This should not be just a volunteer position. It should be a paid position. That's when people take things seriously. We're kind of running out of time, but I want you to give some examples of what we could do immediately. Once we get this specialized ministry, what do we do?
Yeah, we
Couples
do.
Night out.
When we work with a parish, the first thing that we do is we set a cadence of outreach events for couples into the community. We call them date night events. We provide a whole set of marketing services so that the church can get hundreds of people to show up who aren't already at the church and people at the parish to show up. We help the parish design these events. They're 90% fun, 10% education. We help the parish build an ongoing community of couples investing in their relationships, and we flow them into what we call a growth journey, or a program like that marriage or relationship program, like transformational program, like the RAM series by Love Thinks that John Van Epp has created. We frequently want a parish grabbing onto that and leveraging that. It allows everybody at the parish, from single to engaged to married to single again, to participate, so nobody's left out. But my brother's parish is doing dinner for my sweetheart next month. We're helping him with a big outreach event around this. They've got over 80 individuals already signed up. More than half from outside the parish. Okay, this is hard stuff.
This is serious stuff, folks. This sounds fantastic. These are really. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. These are very simple suggestions, but we have to be very serious about this now. Folks, we are in big trouble. And this is for the good of our country. Our country is in moral decline. And it's for the good of the church, because churches are emptying out. Please get their book, Endgame. John's for action, JD's for action, I'm for action, and I know you're for action too. We would like to thank our generous sponsors for their wonderful support. Thanks for watching. Please join us next time for Action for Life. I'm for action, and I hope you are too. I'm Father Michael Orsi. I am your host for Action for Life Television, that good news program which talks about the gospel of Jesus Christ, the big G, and the little g, all the good things that people are doing to put the gospel of life into action. So please join us for the next episode of Action for Life.